I'd like to introduce Sally from Scotland, who takes LDN for Crohn's disease. Thank you for joining me, Sally.
That's a pleasure.
Could you tell me when you first started experiencing your Crohn's symptoms?
Oh, probably as far back as about 10 years, actually. It was very, very mild and slowly got worse, and I was just told it was IBS.
Mm-hmm. So was it offered any medication at that time?
Various things, just like antispasmodic drugs. I mean, I went back and forth, as I say, for a long, long time, and gradually the symptoms got worse and worse until eventually I was vomiting quite regularly and in constant pain and only eating small amounts. And eventually, really, I went back and I said, no, I've had enough. You know, you have to do some more tests. And they did.
Mm-hmm. And what happened then?
I got a colonoscopy, and they phoned me up and said they suspected Crohn's, and then we got the test back from the biopsies, and I was told I had Crohn's disease.
Mm-hmm. And did they offer you any other medications then?
Yes, they put me straight on to azathioprine, immune suppressant.
And how did that affect you?
I was actually on, first of all, they put me on prednisolone for a tapering dose. Sorry, that was the first thing they put me on, and that was awful. I found that very painful to take. And I actually only got the benefits in the last 2 weeks of it. I actually started, for the first time in a long, long time, I actually felt well, but only for 2 weeks. And once it stopped, back came the symptoms, so they then put me on azathioprine.
Mm-hmm. And when did you hear about LDN?
The azathioprine was making me feel dreadful, sore joints, very tired. It helped a bit with the stomach pain, but I still felt dreadful. So it was actually my consultant was talking about removing a small part of my inflamed bowel, and when I asked him, "Oh, does that mean I can come off the azathioprine?" He turned around and he said, "No. Once we do the operation, we really want to keep you on it, to prevent the Crohn's coming back." And it's then that I actually thought, I have to go and look into this myself. And I actually Googled the Crohn's disease to try and find as much as I could. And I happened to come across LDN on a Crohn's forum.
Mm-hmm. And was it easy to get a prescription?
Yes, it was. First of all, I spoke to my consultant and spoke to him about it. And he said he really wasn't that interested in it at all. So I decided, reading about it, logically, it seemed like a good thing to try. So I did more Googling and found out about Dixon's the chemist, and they were absolutely brilliant to get a prescription from.
Mm-hmm. So how long have you been taking LDN now?
I started it in July, the beginning of July last year, 2012, and the first week I felt a little bit worse actually, and by the end of the second week, all my symptoms had gone.
Wow.
I know.
And so you haven't had to have any surgery, is that what you're saying?
No, I didn't have to have any surgery. I came off the azathioprine because I was told by the doctor at the time, my GP, "Oh, you can't come off the azathioprine." And I said, "Well, I'm feeling dreadful on it, and I am coming off it." And my GP again wasn't at all impressed with the LDN, but I decided that no, I was going to give it a go, and I stopped the azathioprine, started the LDN, and literally that was it. 2 weeks later, I had no symptoms.
And have you been back to see your consultant since?
Oh yes, I have. I've been back to see my consultant, who's actually now really quite excited about it. I was just back to see him just a few weeks ago, and he was asking me. He said they've got a big meeting coming up soon, and he's going to be talking about it. I discussed a lot with him. I took information for him, and he actually wants to try it with another patient that he can't give anything else to. But we did actually, sorry to ramble, but when we were talking, I said to him that the problem in my mind is with LDN, with the consultants, is that they tend to use it as a last resort when they've got nothing else to try, because it's not licensed over here. And people with me who must have quite straightforward inflammatory bowel disease, it seemed to work so well with me that it's a shame that they can't use it not as a last resort, but as a much earlier, medicine to try.
Yes.
And he agreed, actually.
Did he? Well, that was something. And did you notice any side effects when you first started?
Yes, after about a week, I had a bit of trouble sleeping, but again, with all my research, and I'm on two very good forums that they said that you could have that, and I did. I mean, I must admit, for about 7 to 10 days, I was walking about like a zombie because it just affected my sleep. But again, they said just hang on in there, it'll pass, and it has passed, and it's fine. I'm absolutely fine now.
Oh, fantastic. So what would you say your quality of life was like on a score of 1 to 10, 10 being the best before you started LDN?
Honestly, I'd say about 4. I remember lying one night, I had no energy, lying in my bed thinking, what is this all about? It was just grim.
What would you say now?
Now? Oh, well, my life's just normal. I forget that I've got Crohn's. I mean, I know that LDN is taking away the symptoms that I've got, and I know if I stop taking it, it would likely come back. But I forget that I've got Crohn's. And I know it seems, it actually seems too good to be true, but that's the fact. That's how it's worked with me. I don't have any symptoms. I can eat anything. My life's just... my stomach feels like it did probably about 10 years ago before I had any slow symptoms starting up. I don't have any bloating or anything. I just feel normal.
Oh, that is amazing.
It is amazing. It really is.
So what would you say to other people who are contemplating trying LDN but maybe a bit scared to go against their doctor's wishes?
Well, with me, I'm very much, I kind of work on logic, and I read so much about it that I decided that it couldn't do any harm, but I actually liked the way that it seems to work, or that's how it works. It was explained how it worked. And I thought, well, it can't do any harm. I'm taking drugs that are making me feel rotten, and they're not good for me. I know the side effects, and long-term effects of like azathioprine or other immune suppressants. And I thought, well, they're talking about surgery. I know that surgery, isn't a cure, and also it can have major side effects. So I thought it can't do any harm to try it. It worked in a complete... I didn't expect it to work as well as it did. I mean, I hoped it would help, but it's actually worked so well. And also, my daughter has got fibromyalgia, and I started her on it as well because I realized, reading about it was an autoimmune disease. And it took a bit longer, but her life's completely changed as well. Her fibromyalgia, taking the LDN.
Well, that's good, isn't it?
I know. We've just been so lucky.
How long had your daughter had fibromyalgia before she started LDN?
She was diagnosed, I think it was about the August 2011.
Right.
She'd probably been suffering from it for about 2 years. And she'd been given, I can't remember the name, amitriptyline. I can't remember. It could be amitriptyline. I can't remember. She was given a medicine which, again, it just made her kind of drowsy, really. It didn't really help with the pain. And I said to her, she's 23, my daughter, and I said, Devin, you must just try this. And but I did say to her, it can take a bit longer, because that seemed to be the information that I found, that for fibromyalgia it can take a few months to build up. And it did. We found it took about 3 months to start kicking in, and now she's a completely different girl. I mean, she was really in pain with it all the time, and she's completely different. Oh,
Well, how fantastic she found it while she was so young.
Yes, I know.
Yes, that's very good.
Oh, I know. It was just... It's really difficult telling people about LDN because I always sound like, oh my God, it's too good to be true. So I always say to people, and I have a lot of people now coming to speak to me about it, and I always say to them, just go and do some research. Read about... I send them all the links that I've got, and just say, just have a read and make your own mind up. Because it's worked for me, it's worked for my daughter, but everybody's different.
Yes. Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us, Sally.
No
I appreciate
problem.
it.
It's a pleasure.